Hi, this is Regina Y Favors, and I have a new series, Overcoming Counterfeit Setback. And the title of this lesson is When You Sell Out for Potential. And I place potential in quotation marks because a lot of times, all of us in general tend to focus on the potential of a person. Women have this bad sometimes. We look at the person, uh, we look at the man, and we look at the potential. We see the vision of the man, of what he could become, and we look at our talents and our gifts and our resources, and we begin investing and thinking that if we do this or if we do that, the person is going to become the thing that we envision. And sometimes that has a lot of pride in it, some arrogance in it. But it does come from this ideal of perceiving the potential of a man does come from a good place in the heart. It's not like the person is trying to set the man up to fail. The woman is not trying to set the man up to fail. What she sees is she sees what she is doing, what she has accomplished, and what she wants to do going forward. And sometimes it has a lot to do with entrepreneurial aspirations. And she sees what she's doing, and she immediately thinks that what she's doing is something that he could do too. If maybe he took a class, maybe he sat down and wrote a business plan, maybe he got into a provider type of thinking. But if it's not in him to become that or to be that, he's not going to become that. Meaning that if he's not already pursuing that understanding now, he's not going to become that. A person who is a grown adult who is still living with someone else, whether it's a woman, a family member, and hasn't moved the needle in their life beyond um, high school, is not the type of person who is actually going to have an entrepreneurial spirit. That person is not going to be, that person may play the lottery and win. That person may do some illegal activity and get a lot of money. That person may even come into something, even an inheritance, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the person put work ethic behind it. The person did not put blood, sweat, and tears behind something. He just kind of come up on something. And women will look at uh, who he is and who he is not and begin to substitute what he could become. Meaning that they are not looking at the situation for what it actually is. He is not a person who keeps a job. He is not a person who has ever had his own place, and he's sitting up here 40 some years old and he's never ever had his own apartment. He's never taken responsibility for his own place, right? He doesn't even carry himself as an adult. And he looks like the real thing because in a woman's eyes, we have made him the right thing and we call it potential. So this presentation, when you think about it from how women view men and potential, and then how men view women and potential, is a little different. And I'm not a man, and I don't profess to know everything about men, but I do think sometimes that men look at the women that they desire, that they want to be with, from the perspective of vanity. The person looks good, she sounds like she has some sense, right? She's beautiful. She got body. She makes love to me, and they look at that as so much of a person having the potential of becoming what it is that the man is envisioning. The man is envisioning himself being an entrepreneur, running things, a king, and so he automatically thinks that the woman who looks like what he is trying to achieve in terms of the image, looks like the person who can fulfill that role of queen, or fulfill that role of support partner, fulfill that role of lifetime partner. But the person is just a counterfeit. The person is just a counterfeit. The person will act out what the man believes the person is to be, but once they get married, it's a completely different point of view. The thing about men and how they tend to choose someone temporarily, but make that person lifetime. You've heard this say people say that don't choose someone who is a short-term person, temporary, as if they're lifetime. Um, Meaning that some people come into your life in different seasons, some for short time, from some for a longer time, and then some for a lifetime. And I think it's a reason, a season, and a lifetime. And what men often do when it's a pretty woman or a woman that they think will fulfill his image requirements, they tend to make the woman who is really seasonal lifetime. And the reason behind it is because they want to carry out this image. But it's not a real image, it's a fantasy. And you have to live in reality. And I heard a YouTube video, I heard a guy in a YouTube video who's like a former pimp or something. He said, love the woman who loves you, not the woman who doesn't love you, or something to that effect. That the woman who loves you is the woman who's actually going to be there with you when you get old, when you get tired. That's the woman who's going to cook and clean and help you and love you. Don't love the woman who likes you, who who is only with you for a short term, and you're trying to make that person a lifetime partner, and that person doesn't even have the mindset of a lifetime partner. So I'm going to go through this presentation. I'm just kind of I'm not quite sure that it's going to be completely what I want. I have written a blog article on this, but for another purpose. That was in 2022. And so I want to kind of go through this, explore the topic. So when you sell out for potential, overcoming counterfeit setback, and this is largely for men. So the counterfeit in any relationship, romantic or otherwise, reflects the false sense of potential. It is the person who you believe will help you to get to where you want to be in life. This means you will ignore the real person who is designed and assigned to get you to where you are supposed to be in your season. The real person listens to God, obeys God concerning you, and applies God's word to the situation. The counterfeit always looks like the real person, and because we are blinded by their potential, we often sell out instead of drive out. There is no guarantee that potential will reach potential, but there is a guarantee that the counterfeit will continue to counterfeit. It is time to overcome counterfeit setback. So, one of the things that I want you to understand, that there is a certain person who is actually assigned to your life who's supposed to help you. What you do oftentimes is you you kind of express hate and hostility towards that person, and hate and hostility is really jealousy. Something about the person you are jealous about, and instead of receiving from that person, you go and create counterfeit relationships. You think those relationships are going to give you what you need. But the person that you are using as a counterfeit, or as a placeholder, does not have what you actually need. They may be able to give you some things that you think you need, and wants and desires, but for where God is taking you and where God wants you in terms of your life assignment, the person that He's already assigned to you is the person who is better equipped, that God has already qualified and trained uh, and developed to be your partner. Not just anybody, just because they look good. And the person who is assigned to you, the real person, can still look good. They just may not fit your particular image perception. But the real person, the you know that the real person is the person who listens to God. Because if she's going to listen to God, she's going to listen to you. She's not substituting God for you. She's honoring God because of you and for you. You want a woman who's actually going to listen to God, who's going to obey God concerning you, even when she's struggling to receive you and love you and sometimes forgive you. She's going to do what God wants her to do concerning you. And when you are looking for a partner, a wife partner especially, you want someone who is obedient to God. Men today are looking for all these women to be submissive and be obedient and follow and things like that. But the men themselves are not even support or not even obeying God. They're not even supporting what God wants. They're not even submitting to God. And so, how is it that you're going to have a partner who's going to submit to you and you're not even submitting to God? The first thing you need to do is to ensure that you submit to God, right? But if they're still struggling with that, the partner that you do choose, or the partner that you should choose, should be one who listens to God, who obeys God concerning you, and will apply God's word to the situation. No, you do not get the right to exploit the grace that God is allowing for the situation through that woman. You don't get to say, okay, I know you're going to obey God, so I'm going to go ahead and cheat. I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and give you the silent treatment. No, God expects you to do right by your partner, your wife, your wife. You, it is not right for you to push the situation, torture the situation, test the situation to the point where the wife just completely gives up because she's tired. Because men are very good at testing out the situations and playing games, and it's all to see if you're going to still come back and still support them and things like that. But women get tired. Women don't have time for all of the silliness that men bring when men are bored. And so men who are bored oftentimes choose the wrong partner because they're looking for somebody to excite them, um, create situations in them that would maybe be a catalyst for them to do something great, right? To change change their life and change the lives of the people around them. But you got the wrong partner. You have the wrong partner for that. The person that you're looking for is the one who God has already qualified, who God has already designed, who God has already prepared to be a wife to you. And only God can really design and help you to see the type of wife that you actually need for where you're going. And that means you're going to have vision. And the only way that you're going to have vision is that you get your vision from the Lord. You coming up with all these different ways of living your life and pulling at different soothing tools, all these different women, drink, drugs, all that kind of stuff, that is not going to actually help you to truly navigate life. It's really going to be a setback for you. The more you continue to pull at counterfeits, the more you're set back in life. And when it comes time for you to um, really do the thing that you really want to do, your spirit is already worn down. Your body is already worn down. Your mind is already worn down. Your finances are already worn down. You don't even have the same enthusiasm and desire that you would have had you stayed on the course that God would have you to stay on the course and chosen the person that God uh, actually qualified you for. So again, the real person you're looking for, because the scriptures say, "He who findeth a wife findeth a good thing." That is the person who will listen to God, obey God, and apply God's word to the situation. Keep that in mind. So, the learning objectives, by the end of this discussion, you will be able to do the following. So, recognize potential that is not actually potential. Recognize when a counterfeit is spouting potential. Recognize that old belief systems and strategies will blind you to the truth about potential. So recognizing potential that is not actually potential. And in a sense that we may perceive something as potential, but it's not potential really for us. It may be potential for somebody else. The fact that you're pulling at someone just because you're bored and just because you're trying to get somewhere quickly, and I said that it will hinder you and set you back, that person may actually be better for someone else. They may be suitable for another person, and that person, and they come together and work together, and move the needle forward. You holding on to that person is preventing a man holding on to a woman who he has deemed as potential or looks like what he wants to do image wise, maybe holding that woman back from the real man who will actually be a husband to her, and whom she will actually be a wife to. So that's why you want to be careful about how you pull at potential, because they can affect your life very negatively, and that's on your own. Recognize when a counterfeit is spouting potential. So the counterfeit looks like what you want to become, or some idea of how you want to be socially perceived, but the person is just uh, talking. The person who spouts potential is usually a talker. The person is not a doer. They look like and act like and sound like they are a doer. But if you test the fruit, if you look at the fruit of their life, you'll see that they haven't done anything. They're not putting their hands towards anything. They're not trying to accomplish anything. They jump from thing to thing. They never stick with one thing. They always complain. They blame other people because they can't accomplish anything, but they never set goals to actually accomplish anything. But they spout potential. Think about the person who is always a dreamer, but not a doer. They say, okay, I got this dream. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And they have all these aspirational ideas, but they won't take at least one idea and begin working on it. But they spout so much potential that it looks like they're really going to go somewhere. They're not going to go anywhere. They have no plans. What they're trying to do is attach to a host. Counterfeits attach to a host. And so then they attach to a host, hoping that that person is going to do something, and then they can get the benefit from it and almost they could get credit for it. That's why you always have to be careful who you marry, because some people are really just trying to attach to you just to get somewhere quicker. They don't want to put in the work ethic and personal investment to get themselves to where they want to go. For example, you see a lot of people go on the Kendra G show, podcast, or whatever, and they're talking about, especially women, they're talking about they want a man at this height, they want him to make $100,000 and maybe have one child or something like that, right? But then the first thing I ask when I listen to them, not all the time, but kind of sporadically, do you already have that? The very thing that you're asking someone to have, do you already have yourself? If you don't already have that yourself, why are you asking another person to have that too? That means that the way I see it is that you are a grown adult and you're still looking for a parent. Essentially, that's what you're doing. You're looking for a parent. You're looking for someone to take care of you the rest of your life, so you don't have to work. But you're still a grown adult. Both man and woman, are still grown adults. And so you still have to make sure that you can, as an adult, still take care of yourself, because anything can happen to that your husband or wife. Anything can happen. So recognize that old belief systems and strategies will blind you to the truth about potential. So whatever you've been doing in your past, you tend to pick up the exact same patterns and strategies uh, and behaviors. See, if we are continually in toxic relationships, it is likely because we just move from person to person. It's the same spirit, but with a different face. Every time you turn around, there's always a situation. You keep choosing the same type of person. And people may say, okay, you have a type, but sometimes the type can be the type that's holding you back. That you sort of got with that person during a downtime in your life, maybe in high school and a little after that, and you never let go of that kind of spirit, or that spirit never let go of you. It's like they're holding on to your heels, and every time you try to break free from it, it seems like you just cannot break free from it. And when that happens, it keeps you from accomplishing nothing other things because it's all distraction. The problem is, you look at yourself and you see, well, I'm accomplishing all these other things. I'm doing very well, but there's something that's nagging at you that you know you're actually supposed to be doing. And pay attention every time it looks like you are trying to go after that, and you tell somebody, you run your mouth, and you tell somebody about that, all of a sudden they have something negative to say. It never fails. And that tells you right there, and it's always critical. They tend to mock you. They tend to have hostility, scoffing, which all falls up under jealousy and hate. And so if you find that every time you say that you're going to do this or whatever, and there's always a brunt of criticism from that person, that's likely the thing that you're supposed to be doing, because people don't always target you for everything. But the very thing that it looks like you're really supposed to become, and they begin to express hostility towards it, that's the thing you're supposed to be doing. So then you have to now look at your situation and say, do I want to continue with this relationship? Because if I continue, I'm never going to get to where I'm going to get to. And that can be the partner that you chose, the counterfeit. That could be that person you chose. And it's hard to get out of that relationship. And that's the sellout aspect of it. It's hard to get out of the relationship because now you have made a decision to go on ahead and stick it out. So let's look at some definitions right before we go into the full discussion. So, potential: having or showing the capacity to become or develop into something in the future. And then in slang terms, having potential means having the necessary abilities or qualities to become successful or useful in the future. That's not actually slang. And then counterfeit: made in exact imitation of something valuable or important with the intention to deceive or fraud or defraud. Imitate: fraudulently, forge, replicate, imitate, fake, copy. Copy is the thing that I noticed that is very interesting. I usually use the word mimic, and I think about people who try to get to somewhere fast in life. They tend to be sort of mimics. They don't want to actually be original and do something that's going to have a much more long game strategy. They want something right now. So then, when you think about it in terms of the counterfeit, the person who looks like potential, you think about it in terms of the person showing you or exhibiting to you that they can be the partner uh, that you want. So they're going to mimic everything you say. They're going to copy everything you say. They don't have anything original about themselves. They have no character, integrity, moral. They're just basically figuring out what you like, and then they're going to acquiesce and position themselves emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, um, and financially to meet what you desire. And then you look at that situation as a man and you say, okay, she's the right woman for me. She loves me because no woman has ever done that for me. She loves me, and I know uh, we're going to take over the world, right? Because I got her by my side, but she's a copy. And she's actually a copy of something that is much more valuable. She's a counterfeit. And it looks like she has the potential to become what it is that you are hoping that she's going to become. But she doesn't really have the capacity. Because as soon as you throw a problem at her, she doesn't know how to resolve it. As soon as you throw an idea at her, she turns it off. Why don't we just live this good life? Well, to live the good life, you're gonna have to work. You you both don't you both haven't come into money, so that means you're gonna have to work to where you want to get to. It's like the person who has a husband. The woman has a husband. He has a restaurant, and I think I've heard this before, but many many years ago. And every time he brings in money into the restaurant, she takes a little bit out of the cash register. The problem is she doesn't understand the income statement, the cash flow statement, all of the different financial statements. The money that she sees in the cash register is not profit. It's a new restaurant. It's not profit. It's it may be break even or very close to it, but it's not profit yet. But she wants it. She wants the immediate gratification of being able to go into the cash register and getting a few $100s and going to go shop. And so the real person that the man should have married would have been the person who was much more patient and long suffering, in terms of waiting until they got to a break even, and very close to profit. The real person would have understand the business aspect of business. The real person would have understand that we need to, um, continue to invest a little longer, and then we'll get to where we want to get to. But what happens is with men, they tend to, invest more in the women who don't do anything for them, who take more than they give, and the men place more value on the sex and the looks, and, whether or not the woman is going to submit, and they don't look at the value of the long term, uh, support and love. And when he gets sick, she's going to be there. If you remember the Tyler Perry film Diary of a Mad Black Woman, the, main character wife, she was there with her husband from the beginning, helping him, loving him, supporting him, helping him with the business, things like that. But when he got up and he got more money, he exchanged her for someone who looks like an image he wants to convey to, the business world, to the legal world. And when he ended up getting shot, and then going into the hospital, going into the coma, it was that woman who wanted to unplug, the life support. And then when that didn't happen, because the wife had, rights and, a say about that, she cleaned him out. She cleaned him out. She cleaned out the bank accounts. She cleaned out the house. She took everything. And so he had nothing. She took the child, all of that. And so he ended up having, nothing. And it was the wife, the long term partner that he mistreated and emotionally abused, who ended up having to help him. And that's the real person. And that's the person that men tend to, uh, shuck and jive and pimp and, mistreat and be hostile towards and withhold sex and withhold love, because they don't want the satisfaction, they don't want to give the satisfaction of the real person the right to receive those things, right? I've heard, some people say that men tend to equate the woman who helped them along the way, helped them to get to where they got to, with poverty and struggle. And so that when they come out of poverty and struggle and they're now like a big man, to the world, they want to get some woman who looks like not poverty and struggle, someone who looks like success. But that's potential because the person has not even achieved success, not by a long shot. They are such a counterfeit to the point that they're not even a true counterfeit in some ways, because at least at least the real person is based upon a work ethic. The counterfeit is not even based upon a work ethic. They just stepped into an actor's or actress role to try to look like what success looks like. They put on lipstick, they put on makeup, they put on a hair, they put on a, a dress. They, put themselves in certain environments where they know they're going to find businessmen, and now they try to look a part of success. But if you look at their life, they have no success. If all they did was move from person to person, one person, probably saw them for who they were and then decided to drop them. They just keep moving from person to person. That's not success. So when you're thinking about potential versus counterfeit, the counterfeit is always going to mimic what potential looks like, but they really don't even have potential, to be honest about it. But at least if they're trying to spout potential by lying and exercising fraudulent behavior, they'll try to mimic it. All right, key number one, problem with accepting potential. The problem with accepting potential is that you accept potential with an uninformed uh, point of view. You just assume that the person standing before you has done the work, looks like work ethic, is a person who can be a support partner, but you don't know that person has abandoned. That person also may have abandonment issues. And the person sitting in front of you, there's a lot going on with that person if they don't have anything of their own. If they've never had an apartment of their own. You got women who have never had an apartment of their own. That's a problem because you don't know how to be an adult. So if they don't know how to be an adult by themselves prior to marrying a man, what do you think they're going to do in the house with you? And people and men tend to put it on this level of, okay, she don't cook, she don't clean, she don't wash my clothes, she don't do that. It's more than that. It's more than that. Does she know how to pay bills? Does she know how to be responsible for herself? Has she lived in an apartment for at least a year? Does she know how to pay utilities? Does she know how to read a contract? Does she know how to conduct herself in public? There's a whole lot more than just merely saying that, okay, she don't cook and clean, she doesn't do this, she doesn't do that. You're looking at it through the lens of what she's not doing instead of looking at it through the lens of what she really is and who she is and who she's going to become. Because if you get sick, if something happens to you and you get sick, rest assured she's gone. There's nothing that you can do about it. So it's much better to pick the type of person that is beyond potential, meaning that that person is actually exercising uh, what she needs to do in life to get to where she needs to go. Key number two, measuring your potential against their potential will cause setback. So just because you have the potential of trying to make it and you want to do this, you're taking classes, you're deciding to get a life coach maybe, um, you're reading you're reading business books on your own, you're talking to people, you're getting wisdom, right? And then you are supporting those belief systems with continued, sustained, persistent work ethic. Well, just because you have a work ethic doesn't necessarily mean that that other person has a work ethic. You will. Women got this bad. I know this is about men, but women have this bad. We think if we just tarry and be long suffering and be there for them, they will finally get a clue about what it is that they need to do, and then we can move forward. But they never do. You can have some grown, big head, fat head man in your house who's not contributing, who won't keep a job, who won't do anything to keep house, who won't take care of the kids while you go to work and have two or three jobs, who want sex at random, I mean, at whim, and then when you don't give it, they go back to an ex, and they're toddlers, they're kids in their brains. Something is broken in their understanding. But women also, mothers also do not always prepare their sons, especially when they come from a single parent home. The son is almost like a pseudo parent, a pseudo husband. So then he's taking on the emotional traumas of the mother, and then the mother tends to be harder on the daughter, especially if the daughter is older. And so then the daughter becomes almost a pseudo husband, but uh, she's actually trained to mule, where the man where the son is trained to sit back and kind of relax. It's a reverse thing. The daughter is trained to be the man, and the son is trained to be a princess, the of a princess. And so from that point of view, you see why women are struggling with men because they don't have the background. It's not just because there isn't a man in the house. I think that's a major factor. But you can have a man in the house and the mother tries to overtalk the man, right? And then you can have a two parent home and it's a loving home, and you can still have a child that leaves that home feeling some wound from childhood. That can happen too. That you have rich people. You have rich people who come. I mean, rich children who come from rich parents, and they struggle with drugs. They struggle with trying to find their way. They struggle with reconciling who they are and all of the responsibilities that are laid at their feet just because they're rich. So you still have certain dynamics. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a single parent household, but I just wanted to kind of throw that in there. But measuring your potential against their potential will cause setback. That person that you're trying to marry is not a business person. It looks like it, and the person talks a great game. They really do talk a great game, but they are not a business person. They don't care about the specifics of business. They want the outcome of business. They want to be able to ride in the car, uh, wear luxury items, live in a luxury apartment, um, um, look rich, look like a celebrity, look like a baller, but they're not going to do not one bit of work towards it. That's why I say don't always judge the situation by, okay, well, he's only making $25,000 a year. I don't look at it like that. What I what I look at is, apart from me, can you take care of yourself as an adult with $25,000 a year? If you've managed to take care of yourself all these years prior to me coming into your life with 25 to $30,000 a year, and you can take care of yourself as an adult, then that's fine. Now, is there a difference between a person in terms of mindset, uh, between a person who makes 25,000 and a person who makes 250,000 in terms of performance and expectations? Absolutely. And sometimes you may not be able to have a conversation with a person who doesn't have the same kind of belief system or something like that. But you got some very smart $25,000 people who read, know how to recite history, can hold a conversation, and then you sometimes you don't. But then you have some $250,000 people who cannot even hold a conversation, who are so preoccupied with what they are trying to achieve and get that they forget about life is about relationships, interpersonal relationships, and building and developing. And they have been so preoccupied with trying to get to six-figure income that they don't have any sense of uh, community, right? So there's a balance needed in both areas. With this, though, with this key, measuring your potential against their potential will cause setback, is that you wait too long to see if they're actually going to become what you are envisioning. So that means that's setting you back. That means that you're not really paying attention to the stuff that you actually need to do because you don't put it on hold, trying to get them to where they need to be, so that we can both be the same equal. It's not going to happen. It's not in them. They don't have the capacity. If they weren't trying to build something prior to you, they're not going to do it now. Right, key number three, conforming to societal guidelines about potential may affect your future. So many times, what this looks like is sort of like arranged marriages. Societal guidelines will have you to marry this person with this person, right? When you're when you're in a black community and you are of the darker hue, especially a man, you will have your mother and your aunts and your sisters tell you that, hey, you need to marry somebody light skinned so your kids will come out light. But you can have two light skinned people and the kid still comes out a darker hue. Not necessarily deep dark, but they can still have a darker hue than the parents. And so then you have all these different belief systems from people who have passed down this type of stupidity from generations, because simply because they hate themselves. They hate their darker hue. They hate how they look. They don't fit the status quo. They don't look the pretty that their friend is, or who the guys in high school really go after. And so then they will spout out all these different types of statements uh, to you to really, really manipulate you, because they know if you get the real person who is for you, you're going to accomplish something. It never fails. If you get somebody that they think is better for you, you're not going to accomplish anything. You may do something on your own, and it's on your own strength and by yourself, because the woman won't help you. But it's going to be an issue later. Somewhere it's going to be an issue later, because then when you come up in the same way that the man tends to lead the woman who he believes was struggle, and go for a woman who he thinks looks like success, she's going to do the exact same thing. What she's going to do is she's going to stick it out. She's going to mimic. She's going to copy. She's going to look like what it is that you want her to become. And once you get rich, she's going to leave you and expect alimony, um, uh, and any other type of support if there are children or anything like that. And so then you're going to be funding not only her but her household and the man that she's dating. And so here it is. You conform to societal guidelines, uh, family guidelines for what they think you should look like and do based upon your potential. Okay, that's why you see a lot of ballers, uh, football men, ballers. They always end up going with a certain type of woman, a certain type of woman. There was a woman who they were coming up with, who supported them, things like that. But then once they signed that contract, they dropped her and got with a woman who looked like a certain kind of woman. And this is both white and black. It doesn't necessarily have to be. I know it's much more common in the black community that black men will go for a white woman, but you can see it in even white men, that there was a woman that they actually had who helped them along their way. But then later, when things started to go well for them, they dropped that woman. You can see it in men like Jeff Bezos, uh, Harrison Ford. I can't think of somebody else just right now. But Harrison Ford was really a nobody. His wife, the first wife that he had, was actually someone, I forget. I think her name was Melissa or something like that. She was the one who helped him get some of the parts. I think she was like a writer director or something like that. But she was the one who was like a mover and shaker. He was just kind of coming in. So like a host, they attached to a host. They married for many years. And so then I think he got Star Wars as a movie role, and then he started to come up. Um, and so something happened with their marriage or something like that, and then he met another woman who was actually younger, Callista Flockhart, and then shortly after that they married. I don't know if he cheated with her or anything like that. I don't know anything about that. But he ended up dropping the woman, and the first wife ended up having cancer, and she died. Now I'm not saying that divorce was a contributing factor, but that's what happened. Whereas she was supportive for him all throughout his career, he wasn't willing to be supportive for her. And there's some more extended um, um, issues with that, right? I wasn't in their marriage, but then you look at Jeff Bezos, and you would think that him coming up, that it was his wife who supported him, helped him, and not necessarily financially, but just the support to try to get somewhere and things like that. Well, they ended up divorced, right? And then he ended up having to give her a high payout, into the billions. And then he goes in, and now he's dating some lady, Lauren Sanchez, and it looks like she's the woman that he's really been wanting all his life. The look, the age, whatever you want to say, right? She's the woman. But the woman that he was with was definitely beautiful. She was the one. She's the one who would, if he got sick, take care of him. Do we know anything about Lauren Sanchez, and if she would do that? I don't know. She does have a good history of in terms of work ethic, so um, she's not to be looked down upon. But I just think to myself, why would you now leave the person now that you've made it? And I mean master made it for Jeff Bezos. But you know, societal guidelines will have you to think that the woman the woman who helped you along the way to get to where you are now, that was just a placeholder. That was just a person that you kind of used along the way. That was just a person who was a support partner. But the real partner you need is this person over here. And that's just really, really interesting to me because Jeff Bezos already has his future carved out for him. But he's also said in interviews that he wants to get to 80 years old not regretting anything. And that's something that I've said too in my own um, past life, past uh, experiences. And I think about that and I don't know, I think about that. Conforming to societal guidelines about potential may affect your future. I really do hope that he left the situation with his first wife right, and that the woman that he has chosen now is the right woman. That if he got sick, something happened to him, that he could depend on her. Key number four: seeking and wanting too long for potential will make your heart sick. So this could be something that you think about when someone is waiting too long for someone to get to where they want to get to. They've decided to they've made peace with the idea that the person is not going to become what they really want them to become, and so they're just going to do it on their own. But at the same time, they're heartsick. This is really prevalent with women. Here it is. She's been pushing and pushing and pushing to try to get this man to maybe go get a job and save some money and contribute to a house or whatever. And then when she realizes he's just not going to do it, there's nothing else that she can do with the situation. She just she just abandons the idea of turning potential into something else and just does it herself. She does all the work, she does all the parenting. She would take on two or three jobs. There's right now a viral video, TikTok first and then on YouTube, where this woman was talking about her partner, and she works three jobs. She works three jobs. The partner doesn't do anything, and no, he does work something and get some money, but she has some gaps when she needs some money, and so she asked him for $20 and he wouldn't give it. She's working three jobs. He not contributing to the house at all, and she just asked him for $20 from between the gaps that you normally have right before you get your paycheck. He wouldn't do it. And so somewhere she thought to herself, okay, I need a man. I think he's a good man. I think he has potential. So let's work this out. Right? Probably moved him in. They had great sex in the beginning, things like that. They fulfilled each other's needs. But the real person came out. The real person came out. And so now, if she doesn't watch it, she gonna have an early heart attack. That's not me saying that just to be mean. That's actually what's going to happen. You can't work three jobs, have a child, have a man who won't contribute and help, and then actually be in good health. You're not getting any rest. So then, when you look at it from the man's point of view or the man's experience, he's seeking and wanting too long for potential, and his heart is going to be sick. And even though he's already made peace to stay in a situation, he'll never have any rest. He'll go to sleep with his head down, but he will not have any rest. It's not going to happen. And the woman will go along, footloose and fancy free, may even take up with an ex, and it'll stress him out, thinking that he's still stuck in this idea of who he wanted her to become, and she's not becoming that. So now his heart is sick, and it's going to have some not only a mental effect, but it's going to have a physical effect eventually. And so at that time, it's time to make a decision, but you're too tired emotionally and psychologically to make a decision about the situation. It is almost like the situation has to get so volatile and toxic that it urges you to put the person out, right? Um, um, kick the person out of your house, you know, push you into a decision, and you're still not necessarily ready to make that decision. You're just feeling like you're forced to make that decision, but it will make your heart sick. The longer you stay in a situation thinking that it's going to change, and that's what we tell women, the longer you stay in a situation thinking it's going to change, it's only going to make your heart sick. And you don't know that there are certain things that a person can do that will cause you to lose your mind, to have to, well, at least affect your insanity. I would hate to walk in on my partner, on my husband having sex with somebody else. I think I would have a mental break. I think something would go on with me that it would be a while for me to recover. I've been able to recover from certain situations, sometimes barely and sometimes quickly. But the last situation that I was in 2013 to 2016, I could feel, I could feel sort of like once I got out of that situation, I could feel some aspect of my mind changing. And I had to really be conscious of it and pull myself out of the slipping aspect of it, because you can be so traumatized and hurt and broken hearted over a situation that it's just easy to slip in to some form of insanity, some mental break, and you just carry on life from a different uh, point of view. So, waiting too long for something makes your heart sick. Do be careful about that. So, key number five: what potential you allow, what potential you do not allow. So, the potential, whatever the person has in that moment, in terms of potential, you allow it, even if it's going to be destructive. How many times do you see these relationships with men who still tolerate toxic, toxic, toxic behavior from the woman that they're with? Okay, it is clear every time you try to take her somewhere, she got to fight somebody. It is clear that uh, every time you guys get into an argument, she got to put hands on you. It is clear that every time you get into an argument, you feel like you got to stay away from the house. Okay, it's clear that when things go wrong with the both of you, you return to your exes. Okay, that's potential. Is what you are allowing. That's all that person has in terms of potential in life. And there are gaps, there are weaknesses, there are misunderstandings, there's some ugliness, some hostility, some jealousy, some insecurity, but that's the potential. And then what you don't allow, your potential to make a decision about the situation is what you don't allow. You could, it's like people who stay in domestic violence situations too long. People say, well, i I can't leave, it's hard for me to leave. But then there was a woman, a friend, who said, you can come live with me. Well, I don't want to leave because I'm trying to work things out. He loves me and he said he's sorry, but that was the time to leave. That was the open door. And people may think this is kind of judgmental. It's not judgmental. Many of us have been in situations where we waited too long to get out of, and then it turned violent. I was in a situation like that. I was in a domestic violence situation. I had an opportunity to leave that situation and I didn't. There was a time that I had an opportunity to leave it and I didn't. And then it got violent. And it came to a situation where I had no other choice. But had I stayed beyond that violent encounter that happened that night, right before I called my stepfather, it was going to turn even deadly. And later, I found out about him years later that he had gotten on drugs and he was struggling. And I don't know anything else about that after that. But so had I stayed, I would have been doing drugs with him, because it's very easy to slip into self-destructive behavior. That's not a very hard thing to do. It doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't take any consciousness of it at all. People throw away consciousness and awareness, um, um, sanity, just to become insane in that situation. The person who is a drug addict threw away consciousness for curiosity. Oh, sure, I'll try it. Oh, sure, I'll do it. Oh, yeah, I'll try anything. They threw away their sanity for insanity. And that's why they're now struggling long term with a drug addiction that won't let go of them. And so the longer you stay in something, the potential that you do not allow is your sane, sound, conscious decision making to see the situation for what it really is. It is turning your stomach. It is giving you heart issues. It is producing a lot of stress and anxiety. You can't work on your job. You're struggling on your job. You may even lose your job, and you continue to work that job out of fear that if you lost your job, she would leave you. So that perpetuates even more toxicity. She won't come home. She won't leave her ex alone. She won't support you. She won't give you sex, which forces you to go and rebound and find someone for sex so that you can have some gratification. And so it's the potential that you allow, and then it is the potential of yourself that you do not allow, in the sense that you won't address the situation for what it really is. You won't call it what it actually is. All right, key number six, when you stay in potential too long, you pick up distorted vision. So then that means that you are creating a distorted vision of the situation that you're in. It's like scales on your eyes. You still keep seeing the person through rose-colored lens. If I and seeing someone through rose-colored lens is still seeing them at the potential, but they have long gone moved away from potential. They are no longer, they have never really been that person. Again, they put on an act, but they have long gone moved away. Once the mask came off, you saw them for who they really were and are. And so now you keep trying to change your mind about what you actually see in reality, and you want to live in fantasy. It is so much better and so much more convenient to live in fantasy, because if you live in reality, you have to take responsibility. That means you have to address why you keep choosing this type of person, why you keep tolerating this type of person, why you believe this person is going to change, why you think that if I just hold on one more day, one more, uh, get through one more battle with this person is really going to be who I've always wanted this person to be. And again, women have this bad, but men, we don't talk enough about this with men. Men have this bad too. You got women who seek out men to use. And I never thought about it like that until my ex and how he struggled with her. And to me, these are Jezebel spirits. Uh, my ex, my ex's ex told him while he was with me, that I can call you anytime I want to, and I know you'll come running. Now, that may be like a variation of what she said, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong, because whenever she called him, he did come running. And we struggled and we went back and forth because I assumed that he was struggling with her because that's the way he painted the picture. He painted it like she won't leave me alone. I'm trying to leave her alone and I just want to go on with my life. But he would turn around and keep going back and forth with her, and we would struggle. He would keep going back and forth to the point that I had to make the decision. My vision was distorted with him, thinking that he's a good person, or thinking that he's just in a bad situation, or thinking that if I just kind of held on long enough, he will see me that I'm the right person for him. Thinking that, okay, I'm the one who wants you. You sit up here keep going after a person who doesn't want you, but I'm the one who wants you. And I stayed in that distorted vision for 2 years and 8 months, thinking that if I continue to walk out the relationship, which was really not a relationship, if I continue to walk it out, it's going to change, it's going to move, it's going to grow and believe, and we're going to walk hand in hand to our whatever vision we had in our head about the relationship. And I know if I just stick it out, I know it's going to change. Okay, a lot of men are doing that, and they're sticking with these women. Uh, and if they stick too long with these women, they're going to become a Lifetime movie. They're going to become a Fatal Attraction episode. They're going to become a Snapped episode, because these women are the types of women that once they make a decision to stay with you, you think it's because they love you and they support you. No, they have other plans. They become conspiratorial. Now they're going to poison your food little by little using arsenic, um, putting arsenic in your food. Now they're going to use sex to continue to manipulate you. They'll put on the biggest, greatest act ever. And then they will withhold sex to also manipulate you, to create thirst, and so that they can have you do whatever it is they want you to do. And so then it becomes a game of cat and mouse. It becomes an even more toxic relationship, and you still not getting any rest, and you're still living with this distorted vision that she see. It's two types of distorted vision. It's the one that she still hasn't become what it is that you want her to become, and you still holding on. And then now it's the distorted vision that she is trying to become that, but in a mimicking, fraudulent way. And you think she is what it is that you have become, that you wanted her to become. So your distorted vision just gets even worse, and you get even more blind to the situation, that you don't see the tragedy that is coming. Because rest assured, there's a tragedy that is coming. And so when you stay in potential too long, you pick up the distorted vision to the point that you can't see. It reminds me of Ray Charles' movie where the little boy, he becomes blind, and he's trying to feel his way through the house, right? And that's how you are. You're trying to feel your way through the house. Um, you had eyesight and insight prior to the relationship, and now you are blind, and that's emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually, financially. And in some ways there's still scales on your physical eyes that are blinding you, because you don't see the devil that is standing before you. You don't see the demon that is standing before you, that is trying to steal your life, kill your life, and then destroy your life. Right, key number 7, adding, subtracting, preserving, and reciprocating potential is necessary. So anyone who adds to your life is always going to come with new ideas. They're going to support whatever is going on with you. Subtracting doesn't necessarily have to be negative. It could be that they're subtracting, um, they're taking upon themselves to look at their own life, look at how they used to be in relationships, what they did in relationships, how they conducted themselves, and how it left them in a very self-destructive mode. And they're saying, I don't want to bring that into this new relationship with this guy. Preserving is always going to be preserving the relationship, preserving uh, the intent, the true intent of the relationship, to actually be a real person and not a counterfeit. And then reciprocating. No relationship, especially a romantic relationship, but definitely friendship and family relationships, uh, should be one sided. There needs to be a reciprocating relationship. That doesn't necessarily mean that if you do something, that that the other person needs to do something immediately. No, but even in friendships, one person pays one time if you're going to the movies, and then the next person will pay the next time, right? Because it's a friendship, it's a relationship. We care about the relationship. We want it to be something, to go forward, right? And anytime you are in a non-reciprocating relationship, it's not going to go forward. Now it has a false forward because you add years to it, and it looks like you're going forward. Looks like you're going, kind of looks like you're growing, but um, you can be. I always like to use the analogy and the visual of the hamster's wheel, that you can be going somewhere and nowhere at the same time, and you're set in a cage. You're both in a cage. and you are carrying on life as if it is working, but it's not actually working. And when you really begin to confront the situation, confront the issues with your partner or your prospective partner, you'll see that it's actually not working. You'll see that maybe you still have feelings for an ex. You'll see that the person um, that you're trying to look at as potential for marriage is a person who is still struggling with an ex. People, who tend to struggle with exes, sometimes that's a soul tie situation, right? Depending upon what kind of relationship they had, and sometimes it's hard to leave it, to exit that situation. And then there are some people who make a game out of pulling at old relationships, right? Or even seeking new relationships so that they can cultivate something like a backup plan, a mate switch, so that if you decided to act up, they can go somewhere else. That's why you have a lot of men who choose to enter, or I'm sorry, to um, create dating rotations, because they want someone in some ways to be added, and then they want someone to be subtracted, and then they want someone to preserve, and then they want someone to reciprocate. And it's all about sex. It's usually all about sex. And then for some men who don't work, it's all about money. So they want you to add money or add sex, and then they want you to sell to subtract yourself if things are not going well in that relationship. But they want you to preserve the idea that if I needed to call you back and be a part of my dating rotation, that you will agree, you will acquiesce, and then they want to be able to reciprocate. Now they don't always reciprocate; they just expect for you to reciprocate. But in a grown folks healthy relationship, trying to work things out, overcoming setback, working on things, whatever, there should be adding, subtracting, preserving, reciprocating. Now you can add multiplication. That's something that I kind of forgot to put there, because anything that you do should multiply, but it may be exceptions to the rule, because you can multiply toxicity, you can multiply chaos. So it's a good thing that I did not put that there. But multiplication could also apply to all of these areas of this key. The most important thing is that I think the most important thing is reciprocating. I think adding and reciprocating are two of the most important things, right? But again, like I said, you can reciprocate counterfeit behavior as well. But adding, someone that you choose should add to your life, not take away from your life. All right, key number 8, money blinds you to their potential. So a lot of times when you've decided that you're just going to go at it your own, and then you make money, it could be from a lottery, it could be inheritance, it can be a number of things. When you decide to do that, it blinds you to their potential, because you think, okay, now we got money, and so now we can be what it is that we want to be and do what it is that we want to do. But the person still does not have potential to support you, even with the money that you have, because they never built anything on their own. And you don't necessarily have to be an entrepreneur or anything like that to build on your own. You can just be a person who kept a job, a person who believed in keeping a job. That's more than enough. But it blinds you to their potential. You have situations um, with celebrities. They get a lot of money, and Will Smith is the best example. Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. I was going to use Kevin Hart and his current wife Eniko. I might use it later, but Will Smith looked at the potential of Jada, and I remember, and she saying in an interview that he said he wanted to make her shine, or something like, "I'm going to make you shine," and he was blinded by her acting potential. He was blinded by the fact that she was in movie roles and things like that, and it looked like, because he was an actor and his first wife was not an actress, that, okay, now I got a woman I can work with. I got a woman that I can build with. I got a woman, we can take over the world. We can take over Hollywood. She just as spicy as I am, or whatever. She cares very deeply, and we make love to each other and everything. He looked at her in terms of potential, and he saw his future, and he saw the vision of who he wanted to become, and he wanted to bring her along the way and make her shine. But she didn't have the same thing in mind when she got with him. As a matter of fact, she was, I think, pregnant on her wedding day, and she really didn't want to get married. And we know now that she has always had some sort of obsession, love affair with Tupac. So no matter how he presented himself to her, she was never going to see him the way that he wanted her to see him, as someone who is a provider, as someone who is loving and supportive, and calls you to shine almost before him. He was so preoccupied with that. But she looked at what he was offering, the potential to love her, as really nothing. It didn't really matter what he said. She was never going to love him in the way that he needed her to love him. And so now she has embarrassed him. She has embarrassed him repeatedly, having an entanglement and everything. And her rejection of him, emotionally, has contributed to him losing the respect of in his industry. Now, do we know what sort of precipitated all that? I don't know. There could have been cheating or something like that. I don't know. And there are some rumors, but he hasn't really embarrassed her. You haven't seen anything where he maybe got with the woman, he was found cheating on her or something like that, because he can embarrass her. All he has to do is bring another woman on the red carpet, and she's done. She's absolutely, that would be the biggest embarrassment for her, and she would be done. That would settle the situation. Now, of course, I don't agree with that, because they're married, and it's better that if you're going to be with somebody, just go on ahead and divorce the current partner you're with, and go on ahead and be with the person that you really actually want to be with. But he could settle that right now. But she has repeatedly embarrassed him. But the money that he had, and the money that he thought that he could use to almost buy her, blinded him to her potential, that she didn't have the potential that he really thought she had. And that it's interesting that after she got married to him, I don't remember, other than The Matrix and then a TV series, Gotham, I think, she hasn't really truly pursued the acting career long term. She got with him, she got settled, she got comfortable. She knew that his potential would be enough for her to take it easy. And it would have been that would have been great as a life goal if she hadn't embarrassed him, right? And but the money itself blinded him to their potential. So I want you to think about that, because you can have all the money in the world, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the person won't cheat on you. Doesn't necessarily mean that the person won't leave you. uh, Kevin Costner's wife, and I think her name is Christine, he's on one of those hit shows of his lifetime, right? And he's been on hit TV. I mean, he's been in hit movies and things like that. But he got this big hit show, and she didn't decide to leave him because he was cheating or anything like that. She decided to leave him, uh, and divorce him, because he wasn't home a lot or something like that, right? What I think she really was after is that she want to be single, but she wants his money to take care of her. And so there was this court case with them where she was asking for a certain high dollar figure, and the judge said no and gave her a lower figure. And then there was something else, some rumor about her seeing some guy or something like that. And then there's another rumor about her being with somebody or whatever. So he looked at her years ago as potential and thought she was going to be the supportive partner that he needed. But all she's doing all these many years later is embarrassing him and divorcing him and hoping that she can get an alimony check or um, some kind of settlement so she can then go on and live the rest of her life single uh, without marriage and on his dime. But she didn't start to have that type of thinking later in their marriage. She had that type of thinking early and way before his marriage. Because who gets with Kevin Costner every day? And so she likely and allegedly sought him out to use him. And women will put in time. They could not like the man, but they will put in time because they know by a certain year they'll be able to get whatever they're going to get in terms of community property. Uh, but to leave him for the reasons that she called herself using is not enough to say that uh, those reasons were valid. Do you want to now retire with your husband and things like that? You don't want him in these major projects? Yeah, of course. But you knew who he was when you married him. You knew he was Kevin Costner, right? Same thing about Tom Brady and just and Giselle. No, I forget her name. Same thing about him. You knew he was a football player. The person that I think he should have married was the woman who he got pregnant before he got married. That was the woman, because that was a woman who would have supported him and been there behind him, helping him, things like that. That was a woman. Look at what has happened now with his new ex-wife. I mean, his ex-wife. She decided to leave him because he wouldn't quit football, but he still had good years. I think he's quit now, but he still had good years. Okay, so and you knew it when you met him. And anything about a man, if they still like they feel have, if they still feel like they have good years, they're not going to just let that go just to let that go, right? And the transition, he eventually went on ahead and left it a year later. And if she had waited just a year, right? Because what if he told her she couldn't go back to model, especially for special campaigns like a Victoria's Secrets uh, fashion show or something? What if he told her? But he knew her when he met her. So then he met the potential of somebody. He chose a woman who was highly regarded. Everybody loved her. She was a catch. It's like you don't want to lose out on that opportunity, right? And and um, who marries Giselle Bundchen every day? Like who gets a date with her every day? Not many people. So he looked at the situation. He looked at both situations. He assessed the potential of both women. The woman that he got pregnant prior to marrying um, Giselle, and then Giselle herself. And he looked at the second woman. He looked at Giselle as the woman with more potential. He looked at her as a person who could be a mother, a wife, and we're gonna be long term and rocking in a rocking chair and things like that. But she divorced him. He would have done better trying to work out the situation with the mother, the first mother. So money blinds you to their potential because you're thinking that they have this long term capacity to stick things out with you when they don't. She got money, he got money, and she went on ahead and divorced him. All right, key nine, interrupting potential affects your potential. So, what if you look at this idea that the person that you really do want to marry um, is really the right person, but the person is in a process. The person could be in a process, and if you try to get with that person before they have fully processed, it's going to affect your potential. And so I want to look at this from kind of like a positive standpoint, not necessarily the typical chaotic type person, but this could be a person who has gone through a number of bad relationships, has struggled with bad decision making, And now the person needs to go through a healing process. And what happens when we look at it from a woman's point of view, we look at the person and say, okay, but I can help you. I can fix it. Let me do something, right? But the person needs to go through the process that he needs to go through. So, for instance, if you have a man who either recently divorced had or has been divorced for many years, and now he's opened his heart to somebody else. Well, then when he opened his heart to somebody else, that old person comes back, old either ex-husband or ex-girlfriend comes back, and it affects him. So now he's turned around emotionally, and he doesn't know how to work with the new person. And the new person is saying, "Hey, I love you. We can work this out." But the man is still struggling and doesn't want to let it go. That's when you need to let the situation go, because if his heart is divided, and no matter what you do, no matter what you say to try to convince him otherwise, his heart is still divided. That means if his heart is divided, it is divided against you. Same thing with the woman. If she's going through something and it's time for her to go through a process of healing, it is not time for you to push marriage. I remember, oh, I'm so glad I remember this. I remember my stepfather, the woman that he's married to now, initially refused his proposal. And what was going on with her at that time, her mother died, her sibling died, an uncle died, a number of people died. And so my stepfather wanted to get married right then and there. And there could have been a number of reasons why he wanted to get married. He had been single for so many years to get married, but she didn't, not because she didn't necessarily want to marry him, but because she was going through so much traumatic um and she told me it was like back to back to back to back deaths, and so she needed time apart and to heal and work through all that trauma. And he kept pushing her, and ultimately gave her like the equivalent of an ultimatum, and she still refused. Well, instead of working through that kind of heartbreak, he goes and finds another woman, brings that woman to the church that they were both going to, and marries her in that church to make the other woman jealous. And so when I say that interrupting potential affects your potential, you interrupted her healing, the need to heal process, by then putting another stress, emotional stress on top of her, embarrassing her, no less. And then it affected your potential, because then that relationship where you married that person, that was not going to last because you used the person as a rebound. So that means you didn't. So your potential in the moment was to learn that you can't get what you want when you want it, and let's just wait. That's your potential. He ignored that. He would rather go and make her jealous, go get another woman and make her jealous, and force her to now marry him. Well, they went through their process. The one that he married, he ended up divorcing her, and then later he got back with the woman who was going through a process. But later in their marriage, some years later in their marriage, she ended up having a stroke or something like that. The pressure that you put on somebody affects them. It catches up with them. The heartache and the heartbreak and the very deliberate nature that you do with somebody, that you cause with somebody, ends up catching up with the person. And she was working hard. He couldn't work because he was on disability. And one day, out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere, she was just cooking one minute, and then after that, she ended up having a stroke. So interrupting the potential, the potential in the example that I'm giving you is the potential to rest your mind, rest your heart, all these traumatic events. Okay, let's breathe for a minute. And the potential for him was to just wait. It's going to come around. She loves you. You know she loves you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have used the woman to try to make her jealous. You know it. Just wait for a minute. So interrupting potential affects your potential. So then their relationship was a bit strained after that. You can't be happy with someone who turned around and married somebody else behind your back and used that woman to make you jealous. You can't be truly happy. You can't fully trust. There was some trust issues in their marriage. So that his game playing affected the potential for trust building. She couldn't trust him. She married him, but she couldn't trust him, right? So interrupted potential affects your potential. Key number 10. So selling out compromises your personal values, integrity, and talent. So anytime you are going to sell out and go for the counterfeit and make peace with that, is one of those things that I hear a lot of time. Men, and these are men who say this. This is not women. These are men. That when a man is forced to um, decide between two women, he chooses the weaker woman. Now, I've heard men say that. Women have mimicked that after that, but I have never heard a woman say that first. That's men say that. And when you do that, you are selling out yourself. You would rather live with the counterfeit, live with the weaker person, than to wait it out and be with the person you really want to be with. And sometimes you don't know who that is, but you have an idea of who that is. It's like you're looking for something. It reminds me of You've Got Mail, and Meg Ryan's character is asked by someone about her special person and who she thinks she's going to want to be with or something like that. And she said it's a kind of like an ideal. I still haven't found that person yet, and I'm paraphrasing. I still haven't found that person, but it's like it's somebody I know. I just know that it's going to be a certain kind of person, right? And then it turns out to be Tom Hanks. And so, has she stayed with the guy that she was living with, who was preoccupied with his typewriter, and then who was kind of flirting with the person who was interviewing him? She would have to put up with a lot. It will compromise her personal value. It will compromise her integrity. It will compromise her talent. She will compromise in life. You got a lot of people who stay in marriages, uh, and I don't advocate divorce in terms of just leaving to leave, but stay in marriages when they know their partner is cheating. Their partner leaves the house, leaves for the weekend, Friday, and does not come back home to Sunday night, and still expects his clothes washed, the house clean, the dinner on the table. He still expects all those things. And somewhere she's decided that if I'm going to keep this home, if I'm going to keep the allotment that my husband gives me, and I don't necessarily have to work, I'm a stay at home wife. If I'm going to have to accept this. And you got a lot of women now who are making all these TikToks and YouTube videos and things like that about telling women that they need to accept cheating and not understanding the implications of their statements that cheating equals exit. The person wants out of the relationship. And men don't respect you when you put up with their mess. Sure, they'll stay around you, they'll let you put up with them, right? But they don't really respect you, and they will continue to cheat and bring all types of stress and anxiety, some diseases to the house, the and to you. But one of the things I want to think about, I mean, call attention to, is the last word in this sentence, talent, and that when you make a decision to stay with the um, counterfeit, the potential, it affects your talent. You whatever ideals that you had prior to meeting that person were just they just came flowing. Okay, they were great, right? And then when you met that person, um, At the beginning, you didn't notice that there was a change to how you develop your talent, but somehow in the arguments that you had in a relationship, the back and forth, the silent treatment, all that kind of stuff, it started to weigh on you. You didn't produce in your talent, using your talent in the same way that you did before. Because if you take the person out of the equation, you'll still be affected. You'll still have some issues, but you'll pick up quickly that talent. But it becomes diluted. It becomes really undeveloped. The longer that you have that self-destructive person in your life, it becomes something that you just kind of sit on the shelf. Somehow it just moved from the enthusiasm that you had for it to now just sitting on the shelf. And then you take up what she wants you to take up, which is a good job, making six figures, giving her everything she wants you to have, wants her to have, and then you just live with it. And I wonder sometimes about men who have health problems later in life, in the same way that I wonder about women who have health problems in later in life. When you put up with a situation so long, I feel like it affects you mentally. I think sometimes the stress of dealing with who just has always been hostile to hostile towards you, really didn't want you, and somewhere you realize that on your marriage journey that it affects you. That that of course you don't always get any rest, like I noted, but I think it affects you more than you realize. I don't think it is something that goes away. And as long as you are in a relationship, in a marriage, um, you're basically surviving. It's a survival test, right? But once you get out of it, you feel the weight of that decision making, that decision to stay in that relationship, that decision that affected how you developed in your talent, that decision that affected your personal values. Many of us have made so many bad decisions in our 20s, and maybe we were becoming aware of them, but just kind of, ignored it in our 30s. But it is in your 40s when you feel your mortality. And that's when the weight of that decision really hits you. You realize the magnitude and the significance of the decision that you made and how it is now affecting you in your life in your 40s. And if you don't catch yourself and begin to turn that ship around, um, before your 50s, you're going to struggle even more in your 50s, 60s, and 70s. And that's not the time to have toxic relationships. That's a If you have a heart attack in your 20s and 30s, rest assured you're going to have one in your 60s, 70s, 80s. So addressing those factors, addressing those issues, like in those 40s before you turn 50, is the time to do that. Because otherwise, you're heading in the wrong direction. And many people, if you watch a lot of the documentaries and a lot of these episodes, snap episodes, and Fatal Attraction and Lifetime movies, you see that the person had an opportunity to lead the situation. You see that the person had an opportunity to choose better. You see that they had an open door, right? But in the case of men, they stay with the situation because it's just convenient, because no one wants to have to start over. And men are the kind of people who don't really want to start over. Women will start over, sometimes too much. Women will actually start over. We'll move out of the house. We'll go get another place. Uh, we'll work with the furniture that we got, and we'll save money to get more furniture. We'll do what we got to do to get to where we got to get to. But men will sit there in that house dealing with a toxic woman for however long he can stand it. And it can be an early death, right? Because certain women are the type of women who will eventually put you in a home. or certain women are the type of women who will put insurance on you and just hoping for you to die just so they um, just so they can get that financial cut. And so those are the types of women that you saw potential in, but turned out they are not the women that you should have been with. So here's a resolution, and it's based in scripture, Luke 5:37 through 39. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, or else the new wine will burst the wineskins and be spilled. And the skins will be ruined. But new wine must be put into new wineskins, and both are preserved. Meaning that when you do decide to marry, you cannot take old patterns and belief systems into a new marriage. You can't take, if we're looking at the potential just for a minute, right? The wrong person that you choose, the wrong person, and who just so happen to be a counterfeit. You can't take old patterns and the way of you doing stuff and tolerating a new previous situations even into the counterfeit relationship. The counterfeit relationship is a deadly relationship. It's off path. It's out of order. It is not the place you're supposed to be, and that's why I tell people a lot of times, and my students, that when people die of tragedy, it is because they were out of place. They were out of order somewhere. If someone if you're dying of tragedy, there was somewhere you were supposed to be, uh, but you're not on that path. You're on a completely different path, and so you don't know what's down the new path, right? The new path, you don't know the consequences down that path, right? But had you stayed on the path that you were supposed to stay on, it was going to be logical. It's a narrow path. Um, it can be predictable, sometimes boring, right? But people don't want boring. And what they want to do is take some of these, take some of their old strategies and old patterns and old behaviors and bring them into a new relationship, a new marriage. That means that when you have to let go of the counterfeit relationship, the person with the potential, you need to heal from that relationship before you decide to enter another relationship, because otherwise you're still going to be operating with a distorted vision, and the hurt and anger and pain that you feel from the relationship that did not work, you're going to now try to project it onto the new relationship as if the person has to pay for all of those problems that you had in the old relationship. That's not fair. That's not fair. The best resolution is to wait it out, address your belief systems, which are your old wineskins, address them. What's going on? Why do I keep cheat? Why do I keep choosing the same type of person? I said this earlier. I keep choosing the same exact type of person. I need to address my old wineskins. That was my issue. They just have a different face, but the same spirit. And so that's why I'm in my own healing mode. Because when I do get married, I don't want to bring in old relationships and what I did in those old relationships and how um, I satisfied that person or whatever, or how that person satisfied me or not satisfied me, or the anger, right? The hurt and pain and the trauma that I got from those relations. I don't want to bring them into new relationships. That's the new wineskins. Because what will happen is that if I bring it into the new relationship, it's going to burst. It's going to break up, right? That the wine will be spilled. The wineskins will be ruined. So the wineskin is the marriage, right? That's a new understanding. Okay. Whereas, say, like a shacking situation, um, um, a fornication situation is old wineskins. That's an old belief system. It doesn't work. That belief system does not work for you. Now, does it work for other people? It could work for other people. You got people who have been living together for years. But it's interesting. Have you noticed that there have been about two celebrities already who were with their partners for double-digit years, and then all of a sudden they want to get married to them? And a lot of times, what that means is, to me, is that they want somebody to take care of them. It's either they don't need a purse, because men who get to a certain age who have messed over so many women, especially good women, at the end of their life, 65 to 70, 80, they don't want a loving partner, right? They don't want even a marriage. What they want is a nurse or a purse. So in the case of the celebrities, it's not a purse, right? Because they got money, but now they want a nurse. And a lot of times, even in those situations, sometimes they still don't put them in the wheel, still don't leave them anything or whatever. Uh, um, and so when you're thinking about this, I really want you to think about this, that once you come out of this situation of dealing with counterfeits and dealing with potential people that you thought had potential, it's time to heal. It's not time to get into another relationship. It's not time to pull at another relationship. It's time to heal. Because if you don't, you're going to bring in all those bad decision making strategies into the new relationship, and you're going to look at your new person, the wife, the real person you're supposed to be with, as an enemy. You're going to look at that person as an enemy, and that and you're going to base it upon this idea that something didn't work in the previous relationship, and so now in this new, I'm going to punish you for it. And that's not right. That's not right to do that person like that. So when you're thinking about this, the only resolution right now is to prevent you from bringing old wineskins into new wineskins, from from pouring wine from old wineskins into new wineskins, so that you have the vision of the marriage actually lasting out your lifetime, meaning that somebody dies out of the marriage. And that's what is to death do us part actually means, that somebody dies out of the marriage. Then that's the only way that you should get out of the marriage. All right, concluding thoughts. Marriage is a risk. Even though I didn't necessarily start out this presentation with the concept of marriage, but I applied it in the sense that men tend to stay with the person that they really don't want because it's convenient. Marriage is a risk. However, failing to take the time to know the person's belief system surrounding potential is an even greater risk. You could end up marrying a counterfeit. Very important. You can end up marrying a counterfeit. And if you stay with a counterfeit, that marriage is not going to be that easy to get out of, because at some point you realize who the person was. You may not have called the person a counterfeit, but somehow you realize who the person was. And instead of getting out of the situation, taking the opportunity to get out of it, you decided to stay. Well, now you're in it, and it's not as easy to actually get out of something that you have developed in, especially when you have this mindset that I want to stick it out. I want to continue to see how this supposed love story is going to unveil itself. It's real. I know it's going to blossom. I just know it. If I just stick it out longer, I just know that it's going to work out. But there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee, because you are married to a counterfeit, and eventually there's a brick wall, and there's a crossroad moment. There's a crossroad moment as well, because some people can be the death of you, even though you may not want a divorce on your record. Some people can be the death of you if the person is showing you who they really are, and it's a violent, very self-destructive nature, and they're choosing to also cheat on you. Okay, that could be your life. One of these days, that partner that you are married to could actually have her man kill you. That can definitely happen. And so sometimes you have to make a decision uh, that you don't always want to make, because you got yourself into something that is not what you're supposed to be in. And so now you're going to have to self correct. So you could end up marrying a counterfeit, which could affect your life. All right, so there are some resources that you can access via my website, reginawhitefavors.com. And then there's a blog article that I wrote back in 2022. It's interesting that I'm talking about this topic, because uh, it's not based on the blog on the blog article, I had to actually remember it. It's based upon something that I've been kind of noticing with men. I listen to a lot of videos about how men are struggling to go back. I mean, struggling with an ex, right? Because they still um, don't want to give up the ex. And then a lot of men who won't marry the real person, but will put up and tolerate the the counterfeit. And so I've just been, and then I've been watching a lot of videos about divine separation and kingdom spouse, and all those types of things. And so I just decided to do this presentation. Then there's a book title that's available on Amazon as well, and Life Recovery After Romantic Haziness, Online Topics and Planning Workbook. And so you can find that on my Amazon author page. And then Regina Y Favors is Regina Y, www.reginayfavors.com. Right, so visit, subscribe, and follow. So do visit the website for more tips, strategies. There are also um, videos and downloadable documents. It's still a work in progress, but I think it'll help you to overcome life setback and pursue life recovery, which has its own process. Okay, so I thank you very much for listening. Please visit the website, visit my YouTube channel, Regina Y Favors, also for a list of videos. Thank you very much for listening.